senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports, and welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. On today's show, I'm going to give you 5 waiver wire ads for Week 10 of the fantasy football season. Week 9 was certainly an interesting week of action. A lot of low-scoring games, a lot of upsets, a lot of disappointing fantasy performances. It just wasn't a good week for a lot of fantasy teams. Hopefully your team did enough to pull out a victory in Week 9, though. And if you're looking for players, here are 5 options for Week 10 of the season. And I have 4 receivers on the list this week and just one running back. But there's a lot of good options out there for receivers. So if you're looking for one, I think there's some good possibilities for this week. My first addition is Brandon Aiyuk of the San Francisco 49ers. He got off to a terrible start, so he got dropped in a lot of leagues. He's out there in about 45% of leagues on our site. And if he's out there and you're looking for a receiver, I would consider grabbing him. He's finally showing some signs of life. He has 2 straight games with double-digit fantasy points. He had his best game of the season last week, caught 6 passes for 89 yards and a touchdown. I know he had a bad fumble in the game, but he also made a spectacular touchdown catch. And he looked very good in the game, starting to round into form, I think, and I think he could be a factor the rest of the way. My next waiver wire ad is Jets rookie receiver Elijah Moore. Moore is really starting to become a big factor in the Jets passing game. He had his best game as a pro last week, caught 7 passes for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has 3 straight games with double-digit fantasy points and 13 receptions his last 2 games. So he's getting a lot of targets. He's getting a lot more action. He got a lot of hype in the preseason. Didn't quite live up to that to start the year, but that was because of injury. He was slowed by injury to start the season, and he's out there in 80% of leagues. I think Moore's another guy that could have a very good finish to his rookie year. My next waiver wire ad is my only running back on the list, and that's Eagles running back Jordan Howard. I wasn't quite sold on Howard after his first game of the season 2 weeks ago in Week 8, but after last week, I'm more sold on him because he's getting a lot of work in this offense. He had 17 carries for 71 yards. He looks to be the guy to get most of the carries in this Eagles offense. I know Boston Scott's there as well, and he had 10 carries last week. I think Howard's the better option of the two, though, right now. He scored 13.1 fantasy points last week, 3 touchdowns his last 2 games. As long as Miles Sanders is out, I think Howard has some value as a low-end number 2 or flex option for fantasy teams, and he's available in 76% of leagues on our site. My next waiver wire option is Browns receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones. The departure of Odell Beckham Jr. opens up more chances for Peoples-Jones. He moved into the starting lineup last week, showed his big playability in that game, caught a 60-yard touchdown pass. He might be the top big play threat in this Browns passing game right now. I know it's a run-first offense, but I think Peoples-Jones is going to get a few weekly chances to take the top off of defenses and make some big plays in this offense. So he could be a good reserve option for fantasy teams because he has a pretty high weekly ceiling because of his big play ability. My last waiver wire option for this week is Falcons receiver Russell Gage. Gage didn't catch a pass in Week 8, a big disappointment, but he rebounded in a big way last week, caught 7 passes for 64 yards. He was targeted 8 times in that game. He has 11 receptions his last 3 games, and that includes that game that he didn't catch a pass. So he has a chance to get a lot of targets in this offense as long as Calvin Ridley's out of the lineup. And Gage has produced in the past, so I think the track record's there. I think he could be a help for fantasy teams, especially for all of you in PPR formats. And he's available in 70% of leagues on our site. All right, those are 5 waiver wire ads for Week 10 of the fantasy football season. Good luck in navigating that waiver wire this week, and good luck in all of your Week 10 games. I hope you come out victorious. This has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports. Have a great day.